Today's unemployment figures show the economy is moving in the right direction. The drop in unemployment is one more sign that the economy is strengthening.
Revenge of the Cis. Revenge of the Cis is these guys are, and from my perspective, from my vantage point, these vloggers, they're artists. They do follow trends, and so one might say that they're gullible in that sense, that they latch on to pop culture to permeate within their sphere, their concepts, their ideas, and with that, they have a lot of takes that are they're enlightening. So let's just take a listen to what Royce from Revenge of the Cis thinks about Ilhan Omar, our Minnesota's representative in Congress.
The other thing with her not understanding the word is what she's implying is that, so again, social media is terrorism if you don't like what you say, so we need to censor it.
As has Representative Omar.
By the way, here you go. You guys are going to be pissed. Some people are going to be pissed at this, especially some of the boomers on Rumble. Ilhan Omar's 100% right about Israel.
Oh,
Yes.
fucking 110.
She's 100%.
So there we have it. These now, if you know of Revenge of the Cis, their fan base may be moving towards being in support of what Royce just stated, but that would be a serious shift, a serious tide change, if the general follower of Revenge of the Cis found truth in Ilhan Omar, right? I mean, there's some sects of the world who back Ilhan Omar 110%. For example, everyone at the World Cup. But there are also a significant contingent of people who are evangelical, or who just shut off to politics and are indoctrinated by the lies that the media propagates here, throughout the world. So this concept of Ilhan Omar being right about the apartheid state of Israel, and being right about Benjamin Netanyahu, aka Netanyahu, this concept that Ilhan Omar is correct, and just recently she was removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee as if a Somalian refugee who was displaced by U.S.-backed military outfits in Somalia how can we not imagine that she doesn't have something pertinent to say? I mean, she could give us a perspective on what's happening in that area, and this is not far from Yemen. This is not far from Iraq. This is not far from Iran, right? So considering those ideas, let's take a listen to the House floor on the day that Ilhan Omar was removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee, which was just maybe 2 days ago that it became official. Let's see here.
Five and a quarter minutes.
I yield to the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Representative Omar, to close.
The gentlewoman.
Before we listen to Omar, let's check out Rashida Tlaib, who spoke just before her.
The gentlewoman from
Yes.
Michigan, Representative Tlaib.
The gentlewoman from Michigan is recognized for 1 minute.
Desperation. So desperate to distract the American people from their total inability to govern. The GOP is now doing what it is best at, weaponizing hate against a black, beautiful Muslim woman. Congresswoman Omar's lived experience as a refugee and a child of survivor of war should be welcomed on this committee. It is needed.
And just to be clear, Rashida Tlaib, although she does have a Michigan Midwestern mom accent, I guess she learned English that way. She is from Palestine. She's Palestinian American. So her vantage point is Islamic in that sense, and it's also connected to mandatory Palestine.
Needed. When you can't pass any bills that actually improve the people's lives, they turn to Congress. They turn Congress into a place of fear-mongering hate. It is so painful to watch. How ironic that the so-called lovers of personal freedom are now moving to censor Congresswoman Omar in the same week they introduced a bill to ban federal employees from engaging in censorship. Where are the free speech warriors today? The hypocrisy is obvious to the American people. You are showing who you all are, really.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Omar will not be silenced.
The gentlewoman's time has expired.
Congresswoman Omar, I am
Gentlewoman's
so
time
sorry,
has
sis,
expired.
that our country is failing you today through this chamber. You belong
The
in that
gentlewoman is no
committee.
longer recognized, and the gentleman from Mississippi is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I reserve.
Gentlewoman from Pennsylvania is recognized.
How much time do I have?
5 and a quarter minutes.
I yield to the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Representative Omar, to close.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Yeah, and okay, so firstly, yes, Tlaib and the passion that she spoke with, was due to her circumstances as a human being, right? So this representation is needed, especially to counter the anti-Islamic sentiments. And again, we'll continue to unpack this term anti-Semitism as it should if it is defined in the way that the IHRA defines it, as broadly including all Israelis and all Jewish people. In the same breath, Muslims are Semites as well. So Rashida Tlaib is a Semite. Ilhan Omar is a Semite. And any anti-Ilhan Omar-ness, any anti-Rashida Tlaib-ness is anti-Semitism in a sense. So let's hear from Ilhan Omar. The other portion of this that I really, I wanted to end with this because I think it's super important to hear her voice as she is, as there is an organized attempt to silence her, to silence an elected representative. Yeah, Minnesota spoke. Minnesota is forward-thinking in its election of Muslim people into Congress. So I applaud Minnesota for that, and I also applaud Ilhan Omar for her statement here.
This debate today, it's about who gets to be an American. What opinions do we have to have to be counted as Americans? This is what this debate is about, Madam Speaker. There is this idea that you are a suspect if you are an immigrant, or if you are from certain parts of the world, or a certain skin tone, or a Muslim. It is no accident that members of the Republican Party accused the first Black president, Barack Obama, of being a secret Muslim.
This is the reason why she is in office, because of the vitriol that Barack Hussein Obama was met with in becoming the president. And what she doesn't one of those issues, recent issues that she doesn't mention is the Muslim ban. So there have been numerous political organizings that have been anti-Islamic, and Ilhan Omar is bearing the brunt of that as a representative here. So she mentions a couple of others as well.
It is no accident that former President Donald Trump led a birther movement that falsely claimed he was born in Kenya.
Yes, and this person may still be running for president. This person most likely won because of, if not particularly that idea, ideas that were as vitriolic as that. So essentially, we have anti-Islam being the discrimination of the day, and also a signifier of pushing back against Democrats, against so-called African Americans, blacks, against Muslims in general.
Because to them, falsely labeling the first and only president of the United States of America a Muslim and African immigrant somehow made him less American. Well, I am Muslim. I am an immigrant, and interestingly, from Africa. Is anyone surprised that I am being targeted? Is anyone surprised that I am somehow deemed unworthy to speak about American foreign policy? Or that they see me as a powerful voice that needs to be silenced? Frankly, it is expected, because when you push power, power pushes back. Representation matters. Continuing to expand our ideas of who is American and who can partake in the American experiment is a good thing. I am an American who was sent here, by her constituents to represent them in Congress, a refugee who survived the horrors of a civil war, someone who spent her childhood in a refugee camp, someone who knows what it means to have a shot at a better life here in the United States, and someone who believes in the American dream and the American possibility and the promise and the ability to participate in the democratic process. That is what this debate is about. There is an idea out there that I do not have objective decision making because of who I am, where I come from, and my perspective. But I reject that. We say there is nothing objective about policy making. We all inject our perspective, our point of views, our lived experiences, and the voices of our constituents. That's what democracy is about. So what is the work of the Foreign Affairs Committee? It is not to co-sign the stated foreign policy of whatever administration is in power. It's about oversight. It's to critique and to advocate for a better path forward. But most importantly, it is to make the myth that American foreign policy is intrinsically moral a reality. So I will continue to speak up because representation matters. I will continue to speak up for little kids who wonder who's speaking up for them. I will continue to speak up for families around the world who are seeking justice. Whether they are displaced in refugee camps or they are hiding under their beds somewhere like I was, waiting for the bullets to stop. Because this child, survivor of war, would have wanted that. The 9-year-old me would be disappointed if I didn't talk about the victims of conflict, those that are experiencing unjust wars, atrocities, ethnic cleansing, occupation, or displacement like I did.
Yeah, and that's the big elephant in the room, is that her upbringing, her rearing, was a product of U.S. expansionism and colonialism. So if we really want an honest and complete perspective, of course we're going to have people who are pro-expansion, pro-colonialism, pro what happened in Somalia. But it's really important to have people like Ilhan Omar representing the United States. And above and beyond all of that, her opinion, I would argue, is closer to that of her constituents and of people in the United States and people in the world, more so than those who removed her from the committee. There's not one person that I've met in the past few months. There's not one person that I've met that is in my age group that is has some types of demographic similarities to me. There's not one person that I met that said that they are pro-war, that they support what's happening in the Ukraine, that they are okay with the fact that that the U.S. government never declares war, but is always engaged in it. Right? And I would like to look back at the Somalian conflict, and maybe if something about that comes up in future news, then we can take a deep dive into that history. But let's listen to these last few, and then we're going to beam up out of here.
They are looking to the international community and the United States, asking for help. They look to us because the international community and the United States profess the values of protecting human rights and upholding international law. So we owe it to them not to make this a myth, but a reality. I didn't come to Congress to be silent. I came to Congress to be their voice. And my leadership and voice will not be diminished if I am not on this committee for one term. My voice will get louder and stronger, and my leadership will be celebrated around the world as it has been. So take your vote or not. I am here to stay, and I am here to be a voice against harms around the world and advocate for a better world. I yield back.
Beam me up, Mr. Spark. Beam